The Women's Fund for Scotland is Scotland's only dedicated fund for women and girls. I'm Susan Morrison, and this is our podcast where we talk to inspiring women improving the lives of those women and girls today. In this episode, we are headed to Eyemouth to speak to Hazel and Maggie of Retweed. Upcycling, recycling and upskilling. Making women's lives better, one stitch at a time. Hazel, can you just tell me how Retweed came about?
I had managed women's services and women's organisations in the past. When I moved back to the border, where I grew up, and I thought I want to do something in my local area and I want to do something for women and girls because that's my niche. And I had learned to sew and I had been in Africa and done a wee bit of community enterprise. So really it was just a hash up of all sorts of things that I'd done in the past. So Retweed was set up as a pilot, and the Women's Fund for Scotland funded the initial pilot of Retweed and nobody else did, which was really important. So I developed Retweed as a bit of a hobby, and then it grew arms and legs and it got bigger and bigger, and then it became an organisation, and then I became a member of staff rather than a person who was experimenting. We started out in 2015, got going in 2016, just grown bigger and bigger ever since.
Yeah, I remember actually you gave me a gift. I don't know if you remember it. You sewed me a cushion cover, and it was, you couldn't have known just how incredibly apposite it was, because it was made out of seat covers from a Highland bus company. And you got a hold of this stuff and you sewed it up into a cushion cover, which exactly matched my cat. It's doing sterling service now. It doesn't match my current cat, but he loves it. But one of the things that I was impressed by Retweed, because I've come down and I've seen the shop and everything, is the fact that it's dealing with something that we don't always see, which is you're dealing with rural deprivation. I mean, would you say Eyemouth is rural? I would.
Berwickshire is the kind of last outpost of Scotland. And in fact, lots of people think Berwickshire is in England because it's called Berwickshire. Yet we have a very rural population. We have very poor transport infrastructure.
Oh, I know.
We have a great deal of hidden poverty. And it's mostly in-work poverty because the wages down here are so low, and people have insecure, short-term, seasonal work and not a lot else. I mean, the public sector is the only main employer, really.
Yeah, we don't see that. People like me come down to Eyemouth and go, this is really pretty and this is really nice. Oh gosh, wouldn't it be lovely to live here, darling? It looks really nice. But the problems of deprivation are actually quite high in these areas. It's always the cities that get the attention, but never the wee places like Eyemouth. I don't want to offend Eyemouth by calling it a wee place, but
I mean, it's a fantastic town.
I love it.
I like to call it the Leith Walk of the Borders, and because it's.
I wouldn't go that far, Hazel.
it's it's fun. There's a lot of good humour. There's a lot of kindness. There's a lot of diversity, and it's quirky and a little bit bonkers, and that's why we're here.
Quirky and a little bit bonkers actually sums up your shop. Because it's lovely. It's full of, it's things that you just go, you look in the window and you go, and all sorts. And so I've snuck in several times and bought things when you've not been there. Just sort of let you know. But that's how Retweed was set up and why it was set up. But you've stepped back a little bit. So we'll go and we'll speak to the future of Retweed now. And that's Maggie. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, Susan.
Now, so what's your position in Retweed just now?
I've got a dead grand title. I'm called a chief officer.
Oh my goodness me.
That's quite a lot to live up to, isn't it?
You will definitely live up to that. So tell me, so you've taken over, you're running Retweed on a day-to-day basis?
Yes, I have. Yeah, I work. I'm not quite full-time, working 4 days a week at the moment. And I'm literally just new in the door. I think the door's still shutting behind me, if you like. So it's all very, very new, but equally very, very exciting, getting a handle on the work that has been done to date, getting to know the community that I'm working in now as well. And I think Hazel was bang on the mark there in terms of, her description of Eyemouth. It's got an edginess to it, that I don't necessarily, some of the outlying villages, and they're all very, very beautiful, but they have that kind of quaintness about them, if you like. And I always think of Eyemouth, like, as Hazel said, they're a bit more like the kind of Leith Walk, a little bit more edgy and a little bit more going on.
Oh, aye. One of the reasons I went to Eyemouth was because Hazel once said to me, "Oh, you need to come down. It's more like your sort of stuff. Don't go to the posh bits. Come to this bit." And then she said to me, because she knows this will work, there's working boats in the harbour, because she knows that'll do it. And I went down, and yes, there is a certain edginess to it. There's a real, I think there's a real liveliness to it.
Yeah, I think, with its historic background in fishing and things, and I think that I find, coming from a working class background, I come from Greenock, and don't hold that against me. But I find the places like that have a real tangible and palpable sense of community.
Yeah.
Because they've had to over the years, and I'm not saying that to decry any other community sort of thing, that's just my experience, where people have had to pool resources and look after each other, and we're underserved in terms of opportunities, and then we're underserved in terms of services and funding and things, because a lot of that is attracted to the more densely populated areas of the locality. So people and communities naturally pool their resources and come together.
Yes. Can I just go back to Hazel for a minute? Because your history is in working to empower women. And did you find it difficult, though, to start in a rural area to make the connections? I'm thinking mainly about isolation. Is it greater in rural areas than in cities?
I mean, I think, although I grew up here, Susan, I came here with an urban-centric third sector view of the world. Even although I'd done bits of community planning in rural areas, I'd never set up or run a project in a rural area before. I mean, I think if I was being honest, I was surprised about the levels of isolation. I was surprised at the normalisation of lack of access to opportunity. People just accepted that there was no further education, there was no adult education, there was no community education as such. They just accepted that. And I was also probably surprised at how difficult it was to get something off the ground in a rural area, because if I had set Retweed up in Edinburgh, it would have been a much more efficient startup than it was. It took a long time to secure the seed money to convince people, which is where the Women's Fund was most profound. One, in validating why we should have women-only services, because that wasn't ever something that was questioned about in the past. So it was really good to have the confidence, the passion to seed new activities, and the endorsement of the Women's Fund in the early days. And I put the Women's Fund logo front and centre of every bit of PR that I sent out, because I wanted to send a message that it is really important to have women-only provision.
The sense of isolation, I think, is much worse in rural areas, and we don't understand that, being city dwellers. And I'm not sure if Maggie would agree with me on that one. And you don't just teach women how to sew. Let's make this absolutely clear, Maggie. You look after them in a big way, don't you?
We absolutely do. I think there is the practical upskilling, of course, is an integral part of what we're offering in terms of a skill set. But I think the kind of further tangible benefits of that comes around, you can sort of day by day, week by week, see the women grow in confidence, grow in their, just, even things like better eye contact, feeling more confident to speak, either with each other or in a group, or give us feedback. A lot of the times when the women are coming on the programmes, they're not used to having a voice, and they're not used to having a space where they can feel that their voice is going to be listened to. When women aren't used to being listened to, it creates a sense of, well, why bother? Why bother speaking up? And for many of the women that are coming through our programmes, nobody's ever given them that opportunity before. So it's almost like watching a kind of phoenix rise from the ashes.
Yes.
Without, you know, that confidence, that voice, and seeing that happen over the course of the programme is absolutely fantastic. We don't do that, they do that. And I think it's really, really important to stress that we facilitate an opportunity and we provide a creative and safe environment for women. But the hard work and the individual personal development is done by them.
Yeah, because I was just going to go back to you again, Hazel, because on the occasions that I've been into your shop without you being there, ha ha ha, yes, I have snuck in. They're always at the table. Was it a deliberate policy of yours to set them up as a group like that?
Yeah, it was. I mean, obviously I wanted to get value for money, Susan.
Yeah.
So we generally take 8 on a course. Sometimes if there are women with mobility issues, then we'll reduce the numbers. Or if there's complex health issues, including mental health, then we'll maybe reduce the numbers to 7. But it is personal and career development by stealth. And as you know, Susan, my background was predominantly around employability for disadvantaged groups and women being part of that. But they were explicit employability programmes. This is less threatening, but it yields the same results. And, you know, people have got a positive, neutral focus of creating products. They're all on the same journey of progress, whether that's in their lives or in their skills development. And so you develop this really non-threatening, safe, cohesive, purposeful space that by default helps people move on.
See, the other thing is, Maggie, in places like Eyemouth, and I suppose many decades, centuries ago, Greenock was a fishing village as well, women sitting together to work was the way that they did it, whether they were mending nets or knitting or whatever. And you've almost brought that back, haven't you?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's harnessing that power, that energy that creates, that compassion that creates, that empathy that it creates, that keeps building each other forward, I think is a hugely, hugely powerful energy.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it can even be quite small groups of women because let's not forget that Macbeth had a heck of a lot of trouble with 3 women that turned up. And that's even before Lady Macbeth got in on the act. So really, you know, possibly the most unwelcome life advice ever. But I'm fascinated by the fact that you've both spoken about outcomes that are quite difficult to measure. You're talking about confidence, you're talking about building reliance and resilience, and they're actually quite hard to measure. And I don't know, Maggie, how you go to funders and say, well, this is how we've done it and this is what we're doing. I mean, how do you get that across to funders?
Yeah, I mean, social impact or that kind of personal development is really hard because it's striking the right balance between funders do like facts and figures.
Oh, they love them.
And, you know, everybody has to justify where they're putting their money. We have to justify how we're spending that money. So evaluation and monitoring is built into our programmes right from the very start. And we actually encourage feedback from the women that are on the courses. And we have sort of follow-up conversations with them as well. And we have that kind of quantitative and qualitative data, to use really kind of boring terminology and dull words. People make sense of the world through stories. It's what I always say. And I think hard facts and data, fantastic, great, absolutely necessary, but they're completely meaningless if they're not attached to the women's story, because the women's story is why we are here in the first place.
I always find if I walk into a room full of men, I immediately start to use words like equivocal and empirical, and 79% of all stats that I will list here, I have invented. So, but I know which ones they are because they love numbers. But I was actually going to ask, I'm going to ask Maggie this one because I don't know if it's changed, Hazel, but how do women get referred to you then?
So they can come through a multitude of avenues, Susan. There's a self-referral route, which is probably the strongest route at the moment on the back of COVID. That's a kind of fallout from COVID as well, because a lot of frontline services were removed. And, you know, there was people weren't going to GP, social workers weren't doing house visits, and all of that still has an ongoing impact across how people are referred. So self-referral. But self-referral also comes about because we've been about for a longer time. Mm-hmm. The longer we're about, the bigger space we take up in the community, and the more that we are trusted and respected, and somebody's had an experience with us, and they've passed that on. So I'm a great believer that self-referral is actually a validation of our work and the space that we operate in.
Yeah, because you see, Hazel is kind of like the past.
Don't say that.
No, I'm not actually saying that. I mean, actually, she said that at the beginning, to be honest with you. She's the founder. She was there. But you, Maggie, are the future. So where are you going to take Retweed from here?
I have to take it into new premises very soon, actually, because I wasn't expecting that in week 2 of my new job.
Are you telling me that she interviewed you for the job, right? And she didn't tell you, oh, by the way, we're going to have to move the whole kit and caboodle?
No, it was a bit of a surprise Hazel, as well. I can't say that. So yeah, that's the biggest kind of moment, if you like. The landlord of the premises that we're in at the moment has decided to sell, so we are on the hunt for new premises. What
amazes me, I'm just going back to yourself, Hazel. You must be incredibly proud of the impact Retweed has had in the area.
Yeah, I am, Susan. We've changed the landscape, and we have inspired other groups as well to do really innovative, environmental, social enterprise-y type things. We're well respected, and people know that we've got a really robust curriculum. They know that it works. They also know that there's a lot of active citizenship out there around the environment that was stimulated by Retweed, and the women are the best. So watch this space. And the Women's Fund for Scotland were absolutely critical in all of that. Shona has been really good to us. She understands the context of our work. She understands the rurality of it. She knows what value for money looks like in this space. And she doesn't beat us with a big stick if we've not made enough trading income as a social enterprise. She's like, what's the impact you're having on the lives of the women and girls that you work with? And that has meant a lot.
It has. I've seen it. It is so fantastic to talk to an organisation which has actually moved the needle in your community.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us and listening to this story. I hope you've been inspired. And if you would like to support the Women's Fund for Scotland, search for us online and listen out for our other podcast episodes.